Welcome to Beauty and the Biz. Discover how to grow your practice with effective cosmetic patient attraction, conversion, and retention advice from author, speaker, trainer, and cosmetic practice business and marketing coach, Catherine Maley, MBA.
Hello and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of cosmetic surgery. So I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, and consultant to plastic surgery practices who want to grow their revenues fast. So today's episode is really going to be interesting. I'm calling it COVID-19 Update with Jules Walters, MD. By the way, you have a very fancy name, Jules Walters. I like that name a lot. So Dr. Walters is an up-and-coming board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon in New Orleans, where he actually is from. Now, he did a 3-year plastic surgery residency at the University of Texas at Houston, and then he trained in the prestigious Texas Medical Center, where he developed an interest in aesthetic surgery. Now, he also loves breast reconstruction, where he trained at one of the top cancer centers in the world, and that's called MD Anderson Cancer Center. Now, after training, he returned to New Orleans to join the practice of Dr. Cameron Maley, and he was there for the past 10 years. And just this year, the timing on this is crazy, he decided to open his own private practice. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that. Now, Dr. Walters used to travel internationally to provide reconstructive surgery to children born with congenital defects. And he's going to continue to offer those in need throughout his career, just maybe not right this second. Now, he's very active with the medical societies like AAFPRS, AACS. He's very active with Louisiana Society of Plastic Surgeons, and he's super active on social media. So, Dr. Walters, welcome to Beauty and the Biz.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for the next hour.
Sure. Oh, fantastic. Well, we're anxious to learn from you because, as I mentioned to you, I have a tendency to hang around with the older doctors more than the younger, only because I've been around for a long time, so they know me more and they have more to work with. You know, they have big staffs, big lists, and they need some consulting. But the younger guy, you're not, young, but you've been around for a while, but you now decided to go out on your own in private practice. So I just have to ask, number one, give us a COVID update for your area.
So, yeah, I think, most people in the United States knows that New Orleans was one of the hotbeds of the coronavirus. And, really, I think it hit home towards, me and my practice right around the middle of March. And so I remember I actually had a breast reconstruction surgery scheduled, I believe, on March 16th. And that Sunday is when the chief of staff of the hospital called and said, listen, the hospital's getting, inundated with coronavirus patients. We have several patients on a ventilator. We are making the decision to cancel or postpone some elective type procedures. And so for this patient, it was a semi-elective procedure. So we made the decision to postpone it. And that was right around March 16th. And, that night, I think, was when everything about asymptomatic spread was being talked about, flattening the curve. And so the next day is when I made the decision to postpone all of my elective surgeries, all of my cosmetic surgeries, and get my office to work remotely from home. And so, over that time, that's where, a lot of hospitals in New Orleans were, really inundated with these patients and, ventilated, needing ventilators. So where it was a serious problem a few weeks ago. I think now we have right around 1,900 people who have died from coronavirus. I think we have about 230 patients who are still on ventilators throughout the state, but the situation does seem that it is improving. And so I think there's a lot of things to be optimistic for. As far as, surgeries in our area, we are only able to operate on emergency conditions, urgent conditions, and those conditions deemed time sensitive. So I think for most cosmetic surgery, unfortunately is not time sensitive.
So for Louisiana, is it the whole state or just New Orleans? Are you right in New Orleans?
I'm right in New Orleans, in like 5 minutes away in Metairie. That's where my office is.
Oh, gotcha. I know that area. So does the governor have a plan for elective surgeries, or when do you open? Do you have any idea?
Well, they just extended our stay-at-home order until May 15th. And so for the state, it was up until April 30th. A few days ago, they extended it to May 15th. Again, on April 27th, we were allowed to do time-sensitive cases. So, it is a judgment call, I think, from physician to physician. I think most members of our Louisiana State Medical Board would agree that cosmetic surgery is not necessarily time sensitive. There are some conditions, like an implant rupture, or an infection, or something that maybe a capsular contracture that's causing patients a significant amount of pain. I think all of those things can be handled on a case by case basis, and it's left up to the discretion of the doctor. Hopefully, come May 15th, we will get more direction on elective cases. And that's what we're somewhat hearing, that maybe at May 15th, we may be able to do, purely elective cases, obviously with all, with social distancing guidelines.
So for your practice, how much of it, like 100% pie, how much of the percentage is recon versus cosmetic?
Probably about 20% recon, breast reconstruction, and about 80% of my practice is cosmetic surgery. So my practice has been, significantly affected, but we're all in this together, and it's ways to take advantage of this time and, come out of this stronger.
So to back up, you came out of training and you went into practice with Dr. Kobehi.
Yes.
Very well-known practice, very well-known surgeon. Was that a good move on your part?
Yeah, I have no regrets. I think, when I came out of training, it was 2014. So I was in practice for 5 years, 5.5 years before I made the transition to my opening up my own practice at the beginning of this year. So 2014, came out of training. I was looking at jobs in Houston as well as New Orleans. I had some job offers with, mentors of mine in Houston, but my heart was just to come back to New Orleans. So at that point, I was looking just to potentially start my own practice or, join another practice. And so, met with Dr. Kabehi, everything worked, great. We had a great, fantastic 5.5 years with each other. And, I just wanted, just like a lot of surgeons, I just wanted my own practice. And so we still partner on breast reconstruction together. So I'm fortunate to, not have, a bad breakup. Everything is great. We're friends. He's a mentor of mine, a colleague, and, we have helped each other throughout this process as well.
So do you think it's like mandatory to get a mentor to get through the waters of starting a practice? Or could you, like looking back now, could you have done that on your own? Or was it invaluable to have watched somebody else who has done it?
Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons of everything. And so, sure, I mean, I think I could have done it on my own, but I definitely learned some things from being part of a successful, practice. I think it all depends on your comfort level coming out. I'm someone that, always want to keep learning, and really it was just a good fit for me. And so, it's not a lot of risk up front. And so, it worked out very well. But I think that's an individual, case by case basis. I know some of my colleagues who have joined practices, they have nothing but regrets. And so it's really about, having those conversations up front and making sure that it's a good fit. And, like anything, sometimes you don't know until it's too late. But everything's been positive. I just, like type A personalities and different things like that. I just wanted my own practice. And so here we are.
I will tell you, I've worked with quite a few partners, and it's not normally a good story, a good ending.
Right.
There's usually that ego, that just the bashing of values and ego and vision deteriorate over time, sometimes faster than normal. Did you have a non-compete clause, or because aren't you opening up shop like right near him?
I am. So again, it's all about, finding the right fit. I did not have a non-compete clause, and I think that speaks volumes for him and for both parties. And you just have to, if you do go into a partnership or an associate type, level of a practice, you just have to make sure it's a good fit for you.
How do you know?
You don't really until you try. And so, I think, because I have some colleagues of mine who didn't, and they may have only lasted 1 year or 2 years. And so, I think it's really just like any relationship in life. You have to have communication. You have to talk about, goals and objectives, and you have to feel that mutual level of respect. And I think if you don't, that's when, egos tend to win and relationships fail. And so, it's sometimes they don't. You don't know until you try, unfortunately.
Was your patient list your list, or how did that work? If somebody called Kobehi and Associates and wanted a breast dog, who got it? How did that work out?
So yeah, I tell a lot of, people that, again, it has to, if you're joining a practice, you have to make sure that the person that you're joining, their goal or their objective should be to get you busy, because then everyone wins, right? And so, right, if someone called the practice and they requested me, then they went on my schedule. If someone called and they they didn't have a preference of a doctor, then the staff would say, well, we have two doctors. And then, do you want, this is Dr. Walters, this is Dr. Kabehi, and then they kind of just put them on in the schedule. So again, we were blessed that we worked well together. I know it's an anomaly, and there was nothing but good things when I left, and and things that we were also kind of felt sad that we weren't going to be working in the same practice. But again, we have a shared interest in breast reconstruction as well, and so we still work together. And I'm blessed. I'm blessed that it was.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that it's possible. It's possible to
It
have
is.
an amicable split and still stay in the neighborhood and not killing each other. So were you able to walk away with a patient list, or did you start over when you walk away from that practice? What'd you leave with?
Yeah. So again, I had all of my photos and all of my patients. This is why this time has almost been a blessing for me, because for the November, December, I was able to book my cases, on this for January and February. So when I took off really January 2nd to January 13th. Obviously, there was a lot of planning in the fall to set up a practice, after hours and things like that. But from January 2nd to January 13th, I had an orientation with my staff, and then we were busy. And so I was blessed that I was able to kind of fill the schedule up in January and February. And really, it wasn't like a startup of a new practice. It was really just a, new building, new office, and things like that. So some of the things that it takes, to run a practice, my email marketing, just the way that we communicate with patients, employee manuals, those things were not all perfected. And so, I was doing those things on weekends and at nighttime. And so this time has allowed me to kind of pause and really get all of that done. So
For sure. By the way, did you bring any staff with you, or did you start fresh from that as well?
I did. I brought three staff, and that was a mutually agreed upon thing. So I had to, hire one additional staff, and I have four full-time employees and one part-time employee.
And you did not furlough them? You kept them on board?
I kept them on board. Again, I think this all brings up, the importance of really saving for a rainy day, and something that I lived by during my first 5 years of practice is to kind of still live like a resident. And even though you're making money and things like that, I knew that there was a possibility that I would want to start my own practice at some point. So I was prepared financially for that, and you know there were things that I needed to take advantage of the downtime, and to make sure my staff is answering the phone calls, the phones the way that I want them. And it gave me time to finish up the employee manual, do some staff training, finish all of our email type marketing stuff, that the way we want to communicate with patients, perfect my consultation day and how we are seeing patients. And so, with that understanding, we made all the necessary maneuvers to work remotely, do video conferencing, and make sure that my staff were doing all of those things. And so, you know, I think that's where I haven't taken a income from the practice account, so I wasn't paying myself. My first thing was to pay my employees, and you know I, I don't think it's bad if you have to furlough people, because again, it's a business. But I just felt a little bit better not having to do that, because I did have work for them to do.
I tell you, that goes a long way with patient loyalty as well, or staff loyalty. For you to hang in there like that, good for you.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you took advantage of PPP, and that relief is coming, or
Right. I just got funded for PPP about a week ago. So, there was some hiccups that, I think most people had to endure. But, again, it's just staying positive. And, we worked with all of our vendors, worked with, our landlords for the rent. And so, the first thing that we did in crisis mode was, how can we conserve cash? What can we delay? And so, all those meetings were done at first. And, now the PPP does help, and it makes me feel a little bit safer throughout this whole process.
for sure. Aren't you in the middle of building a build out?
Yes, I am. So, that was the thing, and everything got delayed, and so I decided I thought by January 1, my new office would be built, but obviously things just take longer, and so I still made a decision to move on January 1, just a easy, good time of year to make the transition. I was fortunate to have a temporary space in the same building where I'm building, so I'm on the third floor in about a 2,500 square foot office. On the second floor, I'm building just a little bit over a 4,000 square foot office. That started, in January for the most part, and then all of this happened. So I've halted construction for now, and there was a few reasons why I did that. Number one, we're in a big medical office building, so there's other practices, and we all had our own guidelines, and the building had guidelines on how patients were potentially coming in and out of the building, but I just didn't feel comfortable having contractors and other workers in the building, when we were worried about asymptomatic spread. And then also, I just didn't know the future at first. What if I build this nice fancy office and then I don't have a practice to come to? So I'm an optimist, but I'm also a realist. And, I'm optimistic that we're going to be back and running. However, I was, trying to be as real as I can to say, okay, if I have all this, if once this office is built, then my overhead goes up. So let's slow it down.
Is there an OR to be built as well?
No, I'm going to have a procedure room where I'll do some local cases and things like that with the intent to potentially transition it to a fully accredited operating room at some point. But, obviously that comes with more expenses. If I have that, I think the best business plan is really if you have two surgeons, because one surgeon can be used in the operating room while the other's in clinic, and so that it's always kind of effectively running. So, the plan at some point is to maybe bring on another surgeon and, kind of, have that business model.
Okay, well, you've thought it through. It sounds good. Yeah. So what would you say is your biggest concern reopening? What are you feeling or fearing?
Well, fortunately, things that I've done with our practice is, when I decided, we were in crisis mode. First, it was to conserve cash, make sure that, we apply for all of the funding. And then it was like, okay, how can we, what are all the things that my office staff was saying that they didn't have time to do? Let's perfect all of those things. And then number two, how are we going to stay engaged with our patients? And so, I was very big on social media once I started. I feel like, I was one of the first to kind of get on Instagram, here in the New Orleans area. I remember I started it just by posting, Transformation Tuesday pictures. And, people were like, oh my God, I can't believe you're posting those, before and afters on social media. And then, fast forward a few years, every surgeon is doing it now. And so, that's always been really a lot of my marketing is doing really organic social media. And I look at it as how can I provide value? How can I provide education? And so with that, we decided, well, what can we do now? I think very quickly everyone was going Instagram live, like, I mean, every business started doing Instagram live sessions. And so I was like, well, that'll be a great way to do that. But how can I still fight through the noise? Because now everyone's going Instagram live. And what I decided was to really do it consistently, do it every single day for the most part, Monday through Friday at the same time, and then call it something. So we called it Wake Up with Walters, and from 9 to 10 for 30 minutes to an hour, either I brought on a guest or I just educated about plastic surgery, and that's worked out really well.
So did you do
So
that only during the COVID-19 crises, or had you been doing that before?
we just started it during the COVID-19 crises. Yep.
I love the consistency of it because I watch for it and I see it every day, and I think good job, and it had a theme. It had good retention attention to it. You
Yeah.
know,
I think with anything, once everyone's doing it, now you have to find out how can I fight through that noise and make it a little bit different and engaging. And so that's what we've done. And we've brought on certain guests. I've even had some patients come on and tell their story, and that's I had a mommy makeover tell her story. I had a breast reconstruction patient tell her story, and those are really the engaging episodes that we had. So and with that, we've done virtual consultations, and I have over, I think, 25 cases on the books already, surgery cases, for May 15th and after. We have a lot of Botox and injectable patients. So, you know, I think for everyone listening, New Orleans was hit very hard, but the interest is still there in cosmetic surgery. And, we saw that, and Dr. Kobehi, told me about that after Katrina. Once everyone kind of got back into New Orleans, cosmetic surgery was very popular. And I think it has to deal with people not feeling good about certain things and they want to do something for themselves. And so my surgery schedule is getting booked. Each day we're booking cases. Each day we're putting on injectable patients. So I'm pretty optimistic of how things are. And so I think the things that maybe concern me or we have some fears or anxiety is how are we going to alter our practice? And that's the thing, because I think we have to look at best practices for patient safety. We have to look about how we're going to redefine the patient encounter now. And then we have to make sure that we're complying with all the new compliance, requirements that we're having, from our local governments and our federal government. And so those are things that, I think my office and I are, having meetings on how we're going to do that. Like, how are we going to see patients now? What does that look like?
And do you have the testing ability there in your area?
So we do, and we're trying to decide on how we're going to do that. I think some of the hospitals are requiring patients to be tested. Some of the surgery centers are not. They're just requiring like temperature checks and like a screening list. Some of the employees are being tested at certain centers. So again, I don't think that there's one standardized way, and that is going to kind of evolve really over the next 1 to 2 weeks as we, start to open up again.
You know what I'm afraid of? We're going to lose the human interaction wearing all these masks and precautions and staying away and not touching each other. I'm just afraid of that because our industry is all about relationships and bonding and feeling trusted. You're my guy, and I trust you and I like you and I want to see you. And I'm worried about that. If that has to, then in that case, I would say definitely go internal. Go external on social so they at least can see you, but once they see you in person and you're all covered up, gosh, I just think we're going to lose a lot there,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where even if we do open up, to offer virtual consultations still, because I think there is still going to be some, there's going to be some sense of fear, and until we have a vaccine, how can we still minimize traffic in and out of the office? And the way to do that is to take advantage of technology.
Well, I've been on a lot of webinars, and they're thinking that their patient flow can decrease by 50%, with all the new precautions, and they're afraid of that. So then you think, well, gosh, if that's true, then you better come up with a higher value patient for the time that it's going to make up for not seeing as many. So it's going to be more quality than quantity. And even then, it's just a silly question. How are you going to do fillers? Are you going to wear a mask and have them take their mask off? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, we're perfecting all of these guidelines right now with our office, but I think, all employees and myself will have a mask on potentially throughout the whole patient encounter. And then for fillers, I think, those patients have to meet certain criteria. So they have to, get their temperature checked, make sure that they weren't exposed to anyone recently. And, I think I feel that it's safe potentially to do fillers. Obviously, the patient's going to have to remove their mask for certain areas.
Right. Are you going to have to sign certain documents saying you're not held responsible?
Yeah, I think, I've been very impressed with really, our vendors, consultants like you. You do a great job of educating and really putting out content for free, your podcast, your Instagram posts, your emails, and that really helps our society. So American Society of Plastic Surgeons and the American Society for Aesthetic Plastic Surgeons have given us consents that are related to COVID-19. So, I think there'll be two different types of consents, for a patient to come in for any type of patient encounter, whether it's injectables or just a consult, they will sign, and then there will be one as well for surgery.
Gotcha. So regarding the business and marketing side of your plastic surgery practice, are you going to market any differently now?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's important to take advantage of some of the attention to social media, and that's where I was with my staff from day one and said, okay, we need to kind of establish a show, and let's do these Instagram live sessions, but do it every day for the most part, and call it something just to make it engaging for patients. And I think that's worked out very well. A patient just the other day, I talked about gynecomastia, and I had a virtual consultation on a patient yesterday that saw the gynecomastia segment, and they booked a consult through that. And so, I don't pay extra money for it right now, so I can't really look at the return of investment. It's time, but especially right now, I have a little bit of free time, and so we've taken advantage of that. Most of my marketing has been just really through my website, my SEO, and I look at marketing on every patient encounter, because that's where I'm kind of old school with that. I try to keep my own internal patients, when they leave my practice, if they have a good experience, then they're my walking marketers, and we take that very serious. And that's something that with the transition of the new practice, that's where we took some time to pause to make sure that we are set up for that. And so that's the best marketing. I mean, a happy patient is the best marketing. And then also social media. That's kind of my go-tos.
And let's talk about social media, because I personally was fighting it. I thought it was a whole lot of effort for a whole lot of nothing, because you couldn't target it. As much as we think we're targeting it, it's still like doing a TV ad. You're just throwing it out there and hoping for the best. It's a little more targeted, but it's still so hard to put a dollar amount on it. I'm a huge marketing philosopher that says if you can't track it, don't do it.
Yeah.
But has COVID-19 been the best thing for patient attraction, for building your list? It's been amazing. I mean, we're all sitting around online all day, and you can't capture that kind of attention ever again in your history. So I'm so glad you're taking advantage of that, because even if it's not leading to surgery at the moment, it's a patient building list that you can follow up with for forever, because somebody who's interested in looking good now is going to be next year, next month, so I think a patient's always a patient. I really do. So just building that brand and building that list right now is brilliant. But about social media. Are you good at following the numbers, the behind the scenes analytics?
No, I'm not, and that's something that I want to do more, especially because I am data driven and I want to look at that, and so that's something that I have been guilty of not doing it. But I do feel that it's really just if you don't like it, it's something necessary to be competitive in this world, and I think it really goes with every business, every company. Now the iPhone and the smartphone has really changed everything, because there's some marketers who say that people, and I think maybe you even said this, people aren't even looking at billboards anymore, because while they're driving, they're texting or they're looking at their phone. And so, I mean, you just have to understand where people are, and most things in life right now are driven by the phone, and that's where marketing is. And I think any business, people who are going to succeed are going to be the best communicators. And so, it's not like 20 years ago. And, it usually, it used to take maybe 5 to 10 years to build a successful cosmetic practice, because, marketing was different now. And I think, young surgeons can come out very soon. And if they are communicating their message more than the older experienced guy who is not doing any of that, they can, the younger surgeon can get busy very quickly.
For sure. How many hours or minutes, or how many hours are you spending a day on social?
I don't know. I guess it's a few hours. It's just, when we are seeing patients, before coronavirus, we're always kind of thinking, how can we share maybe something during the day? When we have a happy patient and I'm seeing them in clinic, it's like, hey, can I video your result? And over 50% of them, I think, say yes. And so, that's a lot of patients that and first it was very awkward. I've been doing it for about, 5 years. And so it was awkward to kind of stop, the flow of the visit and say, hey, your result is so amazing. Can I do a video? And, you just have to get used to and comfortable of doing that. And you'll be surprised on how many patients do want to, show off their good result.
The
So,
secret is the more comfortable you get asking, the more comfortable the patient gets in saying yes.
right. And it's the way that you do it. It's like, and some of the patients, they understand it, because, and especially the more that you do that, a lot of patients that are coming to you have seen you on social media. So they understand that it's just part of it and they're okay with it. Now, of course, there's some patients who just do not want to do it, and that's fine. And, I don't think it's how you phrase everything. It's like, listen, you know that patient confidentiality and privacy is my number one concern. If you feel uncomfortable in any way, you're not hurting my feelings. It's okay. I'm still happy for your result and, everything. And so you kind of know the patients that don't want to do it, and you know the patients that will. And it becomes, it becomes very easy and almost natural once you start doing it for, a few weeks or months.
What does concern me though about social media? It depends on trends and where patient fickleness goes. So how like TikTok right now has become the craze. And what happens is then everyone's supposed to get on TikTok, but you guys are still surgeons. And your surgeons and your office managers and your leaders for your staff and your patient relations. And now you have to be the marketer too. And I feel for you because marketing practice in today's world does take your time. In the old days, it didn't have to, but today it does. So you have to figure that out. But, Instagram in Canada, they took away the followers, to get away some of the, to get away from, I don't know what, the popularity or the skewing of things. If they do that here, I don't know what happens, but that makes me nervous when you can't own that. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to tell everybody this. I hope to God, all this social media, you have a mechanism in there for getting the patients or the prospective audience, their name, their cell phone, and their email. Because if that goes down, or have you ever been kicked off of any of the platforms?
No, I haven't, but I know what you're saying. And I think it's, it's one of those things is you just have to, I think people who are the best at it, they have a reason for doing it. And so if your reason is to have 100,000 followers overnight, and it's mainly just for ego driven, then you're really not, you're going to be dissatisfied with what social media brings to you. And so you really just have to look at it as this is an open forum for me to get my message out. And like anything good in life, there's no shortcuts. And so it takes time. One of my friends is a bariatric surgeon, and he is, starting to get on social media. And I said, listen, I've been doing this for 5 years. And so you need to kind of do this really for a year and not even expect a patient. You have to look at this as, I'm building brand, and building brand takes time. But once people then get to know you and things like that, then it's really just because it can be a free forum. It's a free forum for you to then kind of highlight your best, highlight who you are, highlight your practice philosophy. Sure, it's getting harder to get exposed, and you have to pay to play now with maybe some ads, but that's like everything. And so these are companies. Instagram's a company, and so they have to make money as well. And so don't hate all the algorithms. Just know that this is you got to play the game, and people who communicate their message the best, I think, are the most successful.
And you have to put it in perspective too, because a lot of you think, I'm not giving $1,000 or $2,000 a month to Instagram, let's say, for ads. That's insane. But if you think about it, before you used to have to give tens of thousands of dollars a month to radio or TV because it was just what's that called when you shoot it out there in a barrel? What's it called? You just shoot it out there, and it goes to anybody. For a lot less, you can target more on social. So it's actually not a bad deal to do that. But you have to get good at pay to play. You don't want to you have to really test things and know what you're doing, just so you're not wasting money. Because you certainly can waste a lot of money on social and time.
It's time. But again, I think, it's just one of those things. I think to almost be relevant, you have to do it. And so you can fight it, and you can fight it. And look, over the last, 5.5 years, it's a perfect example. When I first, came to New Orleans, I started doing, something called Transformation Tuesday. And every surgeon and other people were like, I can't believe you're doing that. You're posting, before and after of a tummy tuck or a breast augmentation. Obviously, it was, censored and things were covered, but it was still new to the area, and it was, even older surgeons, they were fighting it. Oh, we don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. And now every single one is doing some form of social media. So, don't wait until it's harder to get noticed. Take advantage of it. I think the phone has changed everything, in my opinion, with marketing. I mean, you probably know, you're the marketing expert, but that's what, things that people that I follow and people that I listen to, that's where people are. I mean, cable commercials and stuff are even, I think suffering because people, aren't really having cable TV now, and people are live streaming things and streaming. So I don't know. I think you just don't fight it. You got to accept it.
I would say now that you have everyone's attention on the phone, who can watch a commercial anymore? I physically am not capable of sitting through a commercial. I've even, when you do retargeting, do you do any retargeting at all?
I don't. I mean, again, I've done.
I say, I wouldn't jump on that, but when you're going to a website, like a CNN website or some kind of news website,
yep.
And the thing is just screaming at you. It's got blinking lights and ads and pop-ups and banners, and you're like, I can't even figure out what I'm supposed to be reading. I came here to read an article, and that's so out of control. Mm-hmm. So if you can get someone's attention channeled to you and your platform, kudos to you. I mean, and you've got to be different. I don't even know how to be different anymore. You have to really get creative. Christian Subio is really good at this, yeah. But he spends hours and hours doing this stuff. But you have to decide, is it worth it or not? But I will tell you, a cosmetic patient in today's world, they're not so different. They still talk to their friends and say, hey, what's up? And then we talk to each other. And then what's the first thing we do? We go check you out on social media. Then we go to your website. And I think that's what the difference is. Before, we were trying to get everybody to go to your website, and we don't get there that way anymore. It's indirect. We first check you out on social, see who you are as a person, as a real person. And that changed a lot. You all were very mono before. You were surgeons, and you were serious. And now you've got to be funny, entertaining, compelling, educational. Oh, yeah. So
I think that brings up a good point, too. I think let's bring up TikTok, and I have an account, but I haven't really kind of delved too much into it. I think you still have to kind of be true to who you are,
right?
And I'm not a big dancer and things like that, and so I think people who then tend to look a little awkward and do those things, if they try to conform to the platform and try to do things that really aren't them, and so you don't have to be on maybe every single platform per se, but it's nice to. And so I think you just kind of find the platform and see how how you can, again, relay your message through there. Plastic surgeons don't have to just be dancing on TikTok. They can, and I think that's what we're going to see now as that platform grows. It's not just going to be a dancing app. It's going to be, some, really like Instagram, I would think.
Well, you know what they're saying about LinkedIn? LinkedIn is like the new Instagram, or it's the up and coming new Instagram. So then you have to figure that one out. All I'm saying is use anyone you want, but just make sure you're collecting data that you own versus hoping that the platform doesn't take you down, or it go down, or it get bought up, or you just disappear.
Right. Absolutely. And again, like what you're saying though too, and you speak about it a lot, is that you're producing content and then you're distributing it to the different platforms. So, if one of the platforms does go down, well, the main thing is that you do have the content to then, distribute to the new up and coming platform, because you have all of that. And so then you can go and make a name on that new platform. But yes, I mean, I think somehow trying to do, get a newsletter or email list and, things like that. And that you talk beautifully about all of that.
Well, so from here on out, for staff, will you have a videographer on staff, or will you keep doing all this social yourself, or how are you going to figure all that out? Because when you get busy again, you surgeons cannot be doing all of this. When do you outsource, and when do you keep killing yourself doing it yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think you need people who are the most successful at it have some help. When my last practice, we had someone dedicated for, the two of us that would help, edit videos and things like that. Now, I was always completely involved with it. I did all of the writing on, that's the thing is I I think people who do it the best, maybe, and to keep it authentic, it just has to come from you in a way. And, I get in my inbox, DMs daily. It's, pay me $3,000 a month to do these posts. And, I've never done that because it's generic stuff. And that's not what people want to see. And so, I think you have to kind of be involved. You can't just say someone else do it. And, but you need help editing and help creating the stuff. And so I think hiring someone full time to do that is important. When I transitioned in January, I was a little bit slow for a few months on it because, again, it was just the startup of the practice. My main focus was, my website works very well for me. So I was getting patients, the schedule was staying booked. So I backed off a little bit on it, but I had a plan to hire someone full time right before, COVID-19. I was going to start the process to kind of, do that. And then this happened. So, that's when kind of some roles changed in the practice. My front desk coordinator, is younger and she understands all these things. So she's been helping me now with everything. And, she may transition fully into that role. So we'll see. But you definitely need some help to do the amount of content that I think you need to do to take advantage of everything, to be on all the platforms and create good, engaging content.
For sure. I do think everyone's going to have an in-house person. I like to call it a day in the life of a plastic surgeon because you are the content. And if you can have somebody trailing behind you, videotaping all of that and put it together in an edited way, that's your content without you killing yourself trying to make things up, like create content. You are creating content being the surgeon.
Yep. And, it's like every single day we're going over and I heard you speak about it. And, all of our consultations, there's so much valuable information that we are talking about. And, I started doing that right when we did virtual consultations. I filmed myself doing the virtual consultation.
Excellent. That's what I recommend doing.
We posted, all of that. And then, you can be funny. A lot of times, during my consultations, I always say, every maybe third sentence, I'll say, does that make sense? And it's just something, I'll say something and I'm like, does that make sense? Yeah. And so, we were able to kind of create that and make that a funny post, of me repeatedly saying, does that make sense? And so, you got to have fun with it. I think, again, we do. I think the younger surgeons, are somewhat naturals at it. And so that's some advantage. But, listen, there's a lot of experienced surgeons who have been very successful at it.
The one thing that I highly recommend is you can't care what your colleagues think about you. You just have to do what you're comfortable doing, that you can still sleep at night. You're being your authentic you, but that kind of transparency is what the patients want. So you can either stay rigid and care about what everyone says about you, or go for it. You can be Dr. Miami. I mean, he really doesn't care what everyone thinks, or something in between there. But I highly recommend everybody at any age or stage of your practice, branding. Start, get that brand down. Let the patients know you and what your values are and who you are as a person, as a surgeon, as a human being.
Yep. I mean, you have to have a purpose with everything that you do. And, if you're just on social media because you feel like you have to be it, or if you're just doing X, Y, and Z just because you feel like you have to do it, then you're usually not going to be successful at it. And so you have to stay true to yourself. And yeah, I mean, if you are, whenever you put yourself out there on video and, different things like that, you're always going to have negative comments. I mean, there's just going to be people that want to kind of pull you down or take you down. And so, one thing I've learned is, don't listen to the positive comments. Don't listen to the negative comments. Just stay true to yourself.
I learned a long time ago when I went into business for myself. My mentor said, only listen to those who are giving you money, because they count and the others don't. And that was very helpful because that already knocked out 90% of everybody. Because that's another thing people don't understand about marketing. You are typically talking to nobody that's going to ever give you money. So there's a saying that says, what you do out there is going to fall flat for 98% of the world, but you can get rich off of the 2%. So if you start thinking about the 2%, forget the 98%. You'll keep your sanity as well, because marketing is a numbers game. Always, always, always. It's testing and tweaking and dropping that, starting this, put more money over here. It's a never-ending battle. Not a battle. It's just I find it interesting because I love human psychology and what works.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's evolving, and you see that, like, again, with social media, different platforms and the rise and the fall of different platforms. So it's always a moving game. It's always dynamic. And, I think and that's how I think for plastic surgeons, and I don't look at social media as really as trying to be marketing. Like I hardly ever advertise specials. It's just, I look at it as how can I provide value with each post? And that's what I tell anybody who's working with me. And when we're doing it is, does this post bring value? Does that show, is this, we just posted, before and after of a breast augmentation, does that bring value? And so, yeah, I mean, someone we obviously have a lot of, interest right now with consults and things like that. So that's, showing someone, that, hey, we can get a good result here at this practice. And so everything, I think if you look at it like that, you're just destined to kind of be successful.
And it's so funny, from my perspective as a marketer, you guys need results. So we are forced to do offers. We're forced to, because otherwise you say, well, what did you do for me today? And you think, I didn't have any call to action. I didn't have any compelling reason for anybody to contact you. So you're playing the long game and the smarter game. But most of us are forced to play that shorter, I need results today kind of game.
Yeah, I guess I'm a long game person.
Good for you.
It's
got to be a long game. You're young.
Well, I think my thing is, I look at it, if you're confident in your abilities as a surgeon, good things are going to come. If you focus on a patient experience and trying to, be an honest, ethical surgeon and provide a good experience for patients, everything's going to come. You're going to be successful. It just takes time. It takes time. And so when you try to shortcut that process, that's when I think problems happen.
Well, enough said. I think you're absolutely right on. I think you're doing all the right things. I would tell you if I thought otherwise. Good for you. Good for you. So any parting comments for anybody? Any 2 cents for anybody coming up in the world, trying to figure out how to enter this crazy market?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to, it's kind of like one of my mentors told me before, you have to kind of have goals. You have to have, aspirations, and you have to have a plan and to know how to get there. And so even these are, crazy times. I mean, we don't know what the next 2 months is going to bring. But, remain optimistic, be the glass half full type of person. And, we're going to get through this. And, especially here for any other surgeons in New Orleans, I mean, there's interest in cosmetic surgery. Our phones are ringing, our consultations are being filled. And so I think that's a very good, optimistic, viewpoint. And, just stay true to yourself and work hard, and good things will come.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Walters. I appreciate your time. I think this was valuable for my audience. And everybody, if you would be so kind as to subscribe to Beauty and the Biz. Of course, I would love a 5-star review. That's always helpful to help me spread the word about this. If you have any feedback or questions, or if you have anybody who wants to be a guest, or you want to recommend somebody, please let me know. And you can always DM me on Instagram at Catherine Maley, MBA. And with that, thanks so much. We'll talk again.
We hope you found valuable insight on this episode of Beauty and the Biz. For more episodes, tools, and Catherine's free book, visit www.catherinemaley.com. That's www.catherinemaley.com. And be sure to subscribe to get the latest practice building strategies delivered to you. And don't forget to share this Beauty and the Biz podcast with your staff and colleagues.